Hey guys, what is going on? So today I wanted to talk about a scan that I just got done, which is going to be kind of the starting point for my bulk. Now, given I am about a month into my bulk already, it's not a true starting point, but it's close enough. And so this is an at-home body scan from Hume Health. And I didn't really have very high expectations for this given my experience in the past with body scans. I've had in-body scans. I had my own pretty expensive body scanner, and the software on that no longer works, so I don't really have that as an option anymore. And I've always just known body scanner scales to not really be very legit. And in general, I just don't think even like DEXA scans are super legit. And so didn't really have super high hopes for this, but I figured it's been really kind of hard to navigate without any sense of where I'm at, given I used to use my at-home scanner quite a bit, and I felt like that was very insightful, even if it wasn't 100% accurate. So this body scanner that I had pretty low expectations for it, but I figured it would be at least like a notch above a lot of the other ones that I've seen. And given the insights that I've gotten from this, a lot of these things I know to be true for myself, and I found that they match up with exactly what my body is like. And so, even if these are not 100% spot on numbers, the fact that they can give me all this data that I already know to be true, I feel like there's at least something right going on with these scans. So I figured, hey, I'm going to keep this as a general guideline of where I'm at. And even if it's, again, not 100% accurate, which nothing is, let's be real. Um, I think it still gives me a lot of data and something that I can collect on a daily basis, which I think is super important. I do have access to in-body scans, which I don't think are very good anyway, but I do have access to those. So if I ever want to do those like on a every few month basis, maybe I could do that. Anyway, got my scan done today. First thing I will say is the number that I trust the least is my body fat percentage. Um, I've had a couple scans and they both put me at about 14%, which I think I am probably quite a bit higher than that. But, regardless, I do think a lot of these other numbers in terms of relatively speaking do seem to match up. So as long as that number is kind of going in the direction that I want it to be, or more specifically, the muscle mass is going in the direction that I want, that's kind of thing that I think matters. So about 14% body fat is what it's showing me at a body weight of 238. I've been weighing in at 238 pretty consistently on my normal scale. And even though I am just trying to slam carbs, I have pretty successfully titrated my carbs up to a very high point. And so the fact that I'm not gaining weight is actually a pretty good sign, which just shows me that I'm just going to be pushing the envelope a ton in terms of how much food I can get down during this bulk, which is a really good sign because back when I was lower carb, I was not eating nearly as much food. And not just food volume, but legitimately calories. I think my calories are pretty darn high already, and I just kind of started the bulk. So those numbers should get pretty absurd in terms of how many carbs I'm putting down, which means I'm holding on to more water. And I historically on my bulks in the past have gone higher carb. But this, in terms of ratios, this is the highest carb that I've ever done. And specifically on training days, I try to go extremely high carb. So holding on to more body water. Now, in terms of lean body mass, weight without fat, that puts me at 205, which again, I think that number is pretty, it's high given the body fat percentage that it gave me, I think is too low. So it's probably closer somewhere around the 200 range, give or take, which is, totally fine. Um, Last time I had like a scan that I actually felt to be trustworthy, where I was actually legitimately lean, I think, given the percentages that I felt like I truly was, and just again, in terms of the accuracy of that, I think my lean body mass was about 193. So if my lean body mass is anywhere north of that after losing a decent amount of leg size since then, it's probably a good thing. So 205 lean body mass, 14% body fat, 238. Now, the really cool thing, now there's a whole bunch of other metrics on here as well, which I don't know those to be true exactly, but um, one number they do give is metabolic age here, which they have at 23. I have been getting blood work. I did have a video on that. My recent blood work came back really good as far as health parameters, like everything that could have been optimal for the most part in terms of heart health and cardiovascular function was optimal, which is crazy because my last test wasn't that good. And also genetically, I don't have that going on for me. So I think the way that I have been supplementing and dieting recently has been very good for metabolic health potentially. Um, and just I think my body's processing nutrients and everything like that pretty well. I think my insulin sensitivity is good, so I think things are pretty healthy in terms of the cardiovascular area. And this is not even doing cardio, so I think that could even be improved upon. Which hopefully I do cardio at some point, but not doing it right now. So metabolic age, 6 years younger than my actual age, which is pretty cool. Now, the really interesting thing, and this is one of the major reasons I was attracted to getting this scanner in the first place, was it shows a distribution of where your muscle mass is in your body. And again, how accurate are these numbers? We can't say for sure, but it did show that my right arm had a significant amount more muscle mass than my left, which I know to be true. I do have symmetrical right and left leg. Each scan could be a little bit different, but that kind of seems to be true in real life as well as just I have not noticed any imbalances. Um, and then it has these kind of like standard or high, relatively speaking. I'm not sure exactly who they're comparing to because I don't know if, other body pod members are 6'3", 240. Like I'm not sure how normal that is. So as far as the trunk being low, I would imagine trunk includes just based off its visual, um, like chest, everything in your back, your abs, your obliques, everything like that. I would imagine it doesn't include glutes, but I could be wrong. And then as far as legs, I would imagine that's, hopefully glutes would be included in that, but I guess I don't really know where the cutoff is for the leg. And then also with the trunk, I guess they could also be including shoulders in there. I'm not entirely sure. But anyway, as somebody who genetically has pretty good shoulders and pretty good glutes, if my trunk number is still low, that and given my chest, I mean, I bench over 400 pounds, or at least I have in the past. Um, that would basically conclude that regardless of how they are tracking this trunk measurements, virtually all of that is probably because of lack of back development, which I know to be true. And the other interesting part about this is the fact that my legs are in the standard range, whereas my back is in the low range. And then my arms are in the standard range as well. Well, guess who's been working arms like a madman over the past few years and who has been barely training legs up until recently? So that just kind of shows genetically where I'm at. Um, and this is something that I shared with my coach, and I was like, isn't it funny how I've just gone to war with my arms, both in terms of I've gone high intensity, low volume, I've gone high volume. I've just put a ton of effort into my arms over the last few years, and they're just standard. And I don't think my biceps in particular, or even forearms, are necessarily genetically bad, but I think triceps in particular are. And it's just fun. I just think it's interesting. So not only are the arms, relatively speaking, such a small percentage of your overall body weight, but for me, so much more effort is required to grow my arms relative to other body parts. Whereas my legs, according to this, are 3 times the size of my arms, and my legs grow so much easier. So, relatively speaking, you could say training legs is about 10 times as fruitful in terms of actually putting on muscle mass as training arms for me. And that sounds about right. If anything, that's an understatement. So that's something that I'm absolutely taking into account moving forward here. Now, this is something I already was doing. I was already trying to bring the leg mass up because I've really been neglecting them recently. And then the trunk, again, regardless of where they're distributing, like is that our glutes, our shoulders included in the trunk? I don't know. But it looks like chest, abs, obliques, and back at the very least are included in there. And I just know that back is a body part that one doesn't grow easy. I'm not saying it's hard to grow, but it doesn't grow easy. But two, I also have just, I know I've never put in the full effort into growing my back that I could. And so that's probably my number one focus. This bulk is the back. And this just further reinforced it. Seeing that number be low. And again, this is something I already know. I already knew that my back was relatively underdeveloped. I've never really given the same attention to pulling movements over the past few years leading up to working with Paris, I just wasn't that concerned about training back at all. And I really wasn't concerned about training legs. But with legs, I'm genetically gifted there. And so I can kind of get away with it. But with back, I cannot get away with it. So again, I think a lot of size potential is going to be coming from the back and the legs. And I think that's one thing I'm going to have to explain later on in this bulk. There's probably going to be a pretty significant increase in my weight that I have. And that's simply just going to be regaining some of the muscle that I've lost. But then on top of that, it's going to be okay, well, if 80%, 90% of my muscle mass is concentrated in these few areas, and the areas that I've really focused on have been like arms and the chest a little bit. Um, there's just a ton of opportunity there. So I think there's going to be a huge jump in lean body mass over the course of this bulk. And I think maybe some people are going to be sussed out about that, but that's just going to be the way that it unfolds, assuming I do everything right and assuming that I stick to the plan. But we're working back, we're making good progress there. Legs are back on the menu and they have been. I got the leg press going, so I don't have the knee issues that I had before. Things are going really well. Now, as far as like actual progress in the gym, it's been really good. I talked about in my last video how I started to do like the German volume training at the end on my free days. And so I threw in some triceps. So I was initially doing biceps. I threw in some triceps. And my tricep strength on some of these lifts that I've been doing has been going up really fast. And that's the craziest part about it is I've done high volume training in the past. Um, so this is a different animal because I think the high volume that I've done in the past has been like I've tried to push the intensity and the volume simultaneously. And even if I wasn't achieving, super high intensity given the volume, it was still a pretty good combination of volume and intensity. This time around, when I throw in that German volume training at the end, those sets, most of them are easy, then I throw in at the end, maybe my last set or two has some effective reps. But it's a very interesting thought process talking about potentially slow twitch fibers coming into play there. Um, yeah, I just think maybe that's a big area of untapped potential for certain people as they haven't really gone the slow twitch route or they haven't done um, exercises where they've been leaving reps in reserve. And I know a lot of people have success with that with pull-ups. That's a movement where pull-ups have been back on the menu for me for a while. And I've been like really not pushing the intensity on my pull-ups, but really just making sure I have good form and I'll leave reps in the tank unless I like know it's there. And my pull-ups have been progressing pretty well since I've been doing that. So I think there's something to it. I think a lot of people, they really don't give any thought to reps or sets that are not high intensity or are not within a rep or two in reserve. And I've been finding success with that. And I think a lot of powerlifters can attest to their strength increasing by going RP 5, 6, 7. And we've just gotten into this world where nothing except high intensity training. You don't necessarily have to be low volume, but it has to be high intensity. And I'm not trying to say that that's not a good method, and I think it has its place. I think intensity has a place in any program, but just completely dismissing adding in volume at the expense of intensity, I think it's been working really well for me. So my triceps training has been going extremely well. I've been noticing visually, like my triceps look how they've never looked before. Even, the level of definition that I have at my current body fat percentage, I've never seen it at like I've had to be significantly leaner to see this level of definition. Um, the size is there. Now I tend to store a good amount of fat on my arms. So it's not like the biggest my arms have ever been, counting for fat, but in terms of muscle, I would say absolutely. And I think my triceps are just coming up a good amount. Biceps are coming up as well. I just think things are going extremely well in that regard. My dips have been going well. That's something that I talked about when I was in Hawaii. That was like the one thing that was going well. So dips continue to progress. I had some really like high quality reps on dips today. So things are going super well there. My shoulder pressing did take a hit, and I talked about that in one of my videos where when I was in Hawaii, for whatever reason, my shoulder pressing didn't go that well. But considering that's like my number one genetically gifted pressing muscle, I'm not at all concerned about my shoulder strength at any given time. I just go in, I do my shoulder work, and I just know it'll get taken care of. And I know shoulders are active in any press that I do anyway. So I'm just not that concerned with it. But I think chest training has been going really good. I've been, the Omni press, I've been hitting some all time PRs on the Omni press. And the dips are also very deep stretch. So I think I'm getting really good chest growth. Again, triceps are coming up. I just think everything's kind of coming together. And back training has been far and away my highest progressing area. My back training has been going extremely well for like months on end, like basically the whole time I've been working with Paris. So the fact that it's just still increasing at the rate that it's increasing means like I really think we're starting to get to that area where we're potentially putting on new tissue. And if we're not there yet, I think it's getting there. And then once I actually get to the point where I'm like really progressing on the back and getting to new areas I've never been before, again, I think that's my biggest area of opportunity when it comes to putting on mass is the back. It's just been the most looked after part for me. Um, Even though I have slacked on legs recently, or at least like prior to working with Paris, and even with Paris, we're kind of low volume on the legs. Um, I used to hit legs before, so I mean, I know I've given some attention to legs in the past, but back has really been the area that I've not given my full. And I think if I just give this bulk 100%, like I'm dialed in with the back for the whole bulk, I think it's going to show up. So super excited for that. Very excited to show you guys these numbers as they progress. Because now that I have these actual, like, hey, this is how much muscle mass is in my leg, this is how much is in my arm, the trunk, right? I think that's really, really cool. And I hope that data is going to help visualize it for you and hopefully give a little bit of illumination on what I'm doing in terms of training and everything like that. So if you guys have any questions about anything that I'm doing or, want to talk about anything, want me to make a video about any topic, I would love to. But anyway, that's what I got to say about that. I'll keep you updated and I'll talk to you soon.